Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
The office lounge was lit by the monitor's cold glow, and the sound of typing echoed in the air. It was just another afternoon, and Lily was trying to focus on the reports, but her mind kept wandering. That wasn't anything new. For the past few months, a strange thought had been sneaking into her head, like a drop of water slowly wearing away stone. A thought that wasn't hers, but that had somehow started to feel familiar. Jessica's voice broke her concentration. "Lily, I have to tell you something," she said, pulling her chair closer to her friend's desk, brimming with the excitement of someone holding a precious secret. Lily smiled, even though she didn't really feel like it. Jessica always had something to say. A sharp remark about someone in the office, a story about her lively nights out, a new speech about modern life. But that day, the conversation took a different turn. "You won't believe what happened last night," Jessica went on, leaning forward, her eyes shining with excitement. "I went out with this amazing guy. Dinner, wine, the whole thing. And guess what? The best part. I didn't have to hide anything from my husband." Lily frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Jessica gave a knowing smile, like she just opened the door to a world Lily didn't even know existed. "Open marriage, sweetie. The modern relationship. My husband and I are free to go out with whoever we want. No lies, no cheating, because everything's out in the open." Lily blinked, trying to process what she'd just heard. Jessica spoke so naturally, like she was just talking about a new restaurant she'd tried. "Wait, so you can go out with other men? And he can too?" "Exactly." Jessica confirmed, excited. "It's an agreement. And honestly, best decision I ever made. Traditional marriage is outdated, Lily. That whole thing of staying with one person for the rest of your life? Who can handle that?" Lily gave a nervous laugh, not sure what to say. It seemed absurd. Or was it? Jessica looked so sure of herself, so satisfied. There wasn't a hint of guilt or hesitation in her voice. "Doesn't he get jealous? Don't you?" Lily asked, still trying to understand. Jessica shrugged. "At first, yeah. But you learn that jealousy is just a sign of insecurity. Once you have emotional maturity, you realize you can love someone and still have new experiences. Society pushes this idea of ownership, but real love isn't a prison. It's freedom." Lily looked away, fiddling with the pen on the desk. "I don't know. I don't think I could do it." "You think you couldn't because you've never tried. But think about it, how many times have you looked at another man and felt attracted? It happens to everyone. We just force ourselves to ignore it because we've been taught that marriage has to be a jail cell." Lily opened her mouth to reply but couldn't find any words. Of course, she'd felt attracted to other men before. She was human. But acting on that? Bringing that kind of freedom into her marriage? It seemed dangerous, like messing with something that shouldn't be touched. Jessica noticed her hesitation and smiled. "Look, I'm not saying you should go out there and hook up with everyone. I'm just saying it might be an interesting conversation to have with Mark. I mean, you trust him, don't you?" Lily felt a knot in her stomach. Yes, she trusted Mark. He was a good husband, present, faithful, loving. He'd never given her a reason to doubt him. And that was exactly why this topic seemed so delicate. "You don't have to decide anything right now," Jessica said, grabbing her phone and checking a notification. "Just, open your mind a bit. The world has a lot more possibilities than we were taught." Lily forced a slight smile, trying to hide her discomfort. Jessica was always intense, always challenging the rules. But this time, she had planted a seed. One Lily didn't want to admit was there. The conversation ended when one of the supervisors walked by, and they both went back to work. But that afternoon, Lily couldn't get her friend's words out of her head. Doubt started creeping in like a silent poison, turning every little detail of her marriage into something to analyze. She didn't know it yet, but that conversation would be the start of something that would change her life forever. Lily began seeing her marriage with different eyes. Not because she wanted to, but because, after that talk with Jessica, it was like something inside her had been unlocked. Little things that used to feel natural now made her question them. The way Mark came home from work tired but always took the time to ask how her day was. The way he settled onto the couch to watch her favorite movies, even if he wasn't that into them. The sweet texts he sent when they were apart. All of that was just part of their marriage, but now a persistent voice in her mind whispered, "Is this enough?" She tried to push the thought away, but it was like an echo, coming back stronger each time. It wasn't just Jessica talking. It was the world around her. Movies, social media, stories of women who found their freedom. Suddenly, everywhere she turned, someone was saying that traditional marriage was dead. That fidelity was just a social construct. That true love could be experienced in a different way. But how could she bring this up to Mark? Just imagining the conversation gave her a chill. She didn't want to hurt him, or make him think she was unhappy. Because, deep down, she wasn't unhappy. She just wondered if she could be even happier. Her first attempts to approach the topic were subtle, almost imperceptible. One night at dinner, she casually brought up a news article she'd seen on her phone. "Did you know more and more couples are adopting non-traditional relationships?" Mark lifted his eyes from his plate, frowning slightly. "What do you mean?" Lily shrugged, trying to sound casual. "Open relationships, polyamory, that sort of thing. Seems like it's getting more common." Mark let out a short laugh. "That's not marriage. It's just an excuse to cheat with permission." His answer was so straightforward that Lily felt her face heat up. She bit her lip and went back to cutting her food, saying nothing else. He'd made his opinion clear. What was there to discuss? In the days that followed, she tried again. Small hints. Tiny seeds she tossed into the wind to see if anything would take root. While they were watching a TV show, a character mentioned that monogamy is a choice, not a rule. Lily seized the moment. "Do you think that's true? That monogamy is just a choice?" Mark didn't even take his eyes off the screen. "I think people come up with any excuse not to be loyal." Again, an impenetrable wall. Lily felt her chest tighten. It was like she was alone in her own mind, carrying a growing doubt day by day. What if Jessica was right? What if marriage as she and Mark lived it really was an invisible prison? One night, while they were in bed, Lily took a deep breath and tried yet again. "Have you ever thought about feeling attracted to another woman?" she asked in a gentle tone, almost like she wasn't expecting an answer. This time, Mark looked her in the eyes, a bit surprised by the question. Attraction isn't something you choose to feel or not. But what you choose to do about it is what defines who you are. She held her breath, feeling a lump in her throat. She wanted to keep going, to say everything on her mind. But the truth was, she couldn't. Every time she came close to the main point, she backed away, like she was afraid of stepping on shaky ground. And so, the days went by. Jessica often asked if she'd talked to Mark yet, and Lily just shook her head. "Not yet," she mumbled, feeling more frustrated with herself each time. She wanted to talk. She had to. But how could she tear down everything her marriage stood for in a single conversation? The problem was, the longer she waited to say it, the harder it got. That night, Lily sat on the edge of the bed, her heart pounding in her chest. Mark was already lying down, scrolling on his phone, not worried about anything beyond what was on the screen. She knew the moment would never be perfect. There would never be an easy opener for what she needed to say. If she kept waiting, she'd never say it. She took a deep breath. Her palms were sweaty. "Mark," she called quietly. He turned his head toward her but kept his phone in his hand. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The fear that he would judge her, that he would see something wrong in her, was suffocating. How could she explain that, for the past few months, a thought had been growing inside her like a weed? How could she say that maybe there was another way to live a marriage? Mark noticed the silence and finally looked away from his phone. "What is it?" She swallowed hard. She couldn't do it. "Not yet." "Nothing. I just wanted to know if you remembered to buy the coffee I asked for." He raised an eyebrow, suspicious of the random question. But after a second, he just shrugged. "Oh. Yeah, I did. It's in the kitchen." Lily forced a smile and lay down next to him, feeling her body tense, as if she were prepared for a battle that never happened. Once again, she backed down. But she couldn't do that forever. Over the next few days, she kept trying. Small remarks. Comments on an article she'd seen online. A story about a couple who decided to explore new possibilities. But whenever Mark firmly stated his belief, that those kinds of relationships weren't real, that they were just excuses for cheating, Lily felt her courage crumble. Until one night, after weeks of hesitation, she finally worked up the nerve. They were in the living room, Mark watching a game, Lily sitting beside him, not really following what was on the screen. She was restless, feeling a growing tension. She couldn't keep pushing it off. She had to say something. She took a deep breath and spoke. "Mark. I wanted to talk about something." He kept his eyes on the TV but answered. "Go ahead." She wet her lips and shifted on the couch. "Have you ever thought about what really makes a marriage happy? I mean, if we had the chance to experience something new, to find a different way of being together, would you consider it?" Mark finally tore his gaze from the screen and looked straight at her. "What do you mean?" Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. She couldn't back out now. "I mean, what if we tried something different? Like, making room for new experiences, but together. Without lies. Without hiding anything." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark's expression went blank, like he was struggling to process what she'd just said. The game still played on the TV, the commentators excited about some play, but it was like the whole world had fallen silent around them. When he spoke, his voice was icy. "You're telling me you want to be with other men?" She widened her eyes. "That's not it. It's not that simple, Mark, it's just that," she hesitated. "Jessica made me think about what a happy marriage really means, and I just wanted to know what you think." Mark frowned, now completely serious. "Jessica? Your friend Jessica? The one who's always going out with different guys?" Lily's stomach churned. His tone dripped with judgment, with disdain. "She told me about her marriage, and I started thinking what, Lily? That opening up a marriage is somehow the answer? That this is normal?" She bit her lip, her breath shallow. Mark was looking at her like he didn't recognize her. "I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying maybe there are other ways to live." Mark ran his hand over his face, incredulous. "Other ways to live? Is this a joke? Do you really think an open relationship is marriage? It's just a fancy name for allowed cheating. You and your friend have a twisted idea of what commitment means." She felt her face burn. That wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want to fight. "Mark, I just what, Lily?" He leaned forward, his eyes blazing with anger. "You really think love is that? That marriage is some kind of contract where everyone does what they want and just tells the other afterward?" She lowered her gaze. His words cut into her like knives. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Mark stared at her for a few seconds, then shook his head and got up from the couch. I'm going to bed. And he left without looking back. Lily stayed there, alone in the living room, the muffled sounds of the TV in the background. Her heart pounded, her hands shaking. She'd never felt so vulnerable. She didn't know that conversation would change everything. But Mark did. That was why, that very night, he decided he had to find out what else his wife was hiding. That observation is great. It creates an inconsistency in the story. In the first part, Jessica says her marriage is open and her husband knows. But in the third and fourth parts, she says she tried talking to her husband and he didn't accept it, so she decided on her own to go out with other men without him knowing. That contradicts what was established at the start. Fixing the inconsistency, we can adjust the story so that Jessica was always lying about her open marriage. In other words, in the first part, she tells Lily she has a modern, free relationship, but in reality, her husband was never aware of any of it. That way, the reveal in the third and fourth parts has more impact. So when Lily learns that Jessica never told her husband anything and is actually cheating behind his back, she gets a shock. This might make her even more vulnerable to the idea of trying something new, since her reference point, Jessica, was always bolder and more confident. I'll now rewrite part 4 with this correction in mind, ensuring everything is consistent and without contradictions. That night, Mark was on the couch, but his mind was elsewhere. Lily had already gone to bed, and he was still trying to make sense of that conversation. What had happened to his wife? How could she, the woman he built a life of trust with, even consider something like that? He tried not to dwell on it. Tried to ignore it. But something inside him wouldn't let him rest. It wasn't just about the conversation. It was the tone of her voice, how she hesitated, how she seemed both scared and tempted by her own idea. And there was Jessica. Mark never liked her. He always felt she was a bad influence on Lily. But until then, he thought that was just a hunch. Now it seemed clear that Jessica had a bigger role in all of this. That's when he made a decision. He needed to know the truth. In the days that followed, Mark started watching Lily more closely. Small details began to stand out. She was on her phone more often than usual, and she always flipped the screen down when she set it on the table. She got messages late at night, and when he asked who it was, she'd give vague answers like, "Just Jessica." It bothered him. But what really set off alarm bells was a specific moment, when he decided to check her messages. He didn't want to be that kind of husband. He'd never had the habit of invading her privacy. But this was about more than trust. It was about knowing the truth before it was too late. That night, while Lily was showering, Mark grabbed her phone and went straight to the conversation with Jessica. What he found made his stomach turn. "Jessica, did you talk to him?" "Lily, I did. But he didn't accept it. He said that you and I are wrong." "Jessica, of course he didn't accept it. Neither did my husband when I tried talking to him." "Lily, wait, what? You said he knew and that you both agreed to it." "Jessica, well, maybe I exaggerated a bit." "Lily, you lied to me this whole time?" "Jessica, it's not exactly a lie. I tried talking to him. He flipped out. So I decided to do it my way. If he doesn't want to know, that's his problem. I'm not the kind to stay stuck in a marriage just because society says I should." "Lily, you've gone out with other men without him knowing?" "Jessica, of course. And guess what? He doesn't even suspect." "Lily, Jessica, I don't know what to think." "Jessica, stop overthinking and live a little. By the way, I'm going out tomorrow with a guy who has a friend. If you want to come along, you know where to find me." Mark felt a chill run through him. So that was it. Jessica had been lying all along, spinning her life into a modern fairy tale, when in reality she was just cheating on her husband and refusing to admit it. And now she was trying to lead Lily down the same path. Mark put the phone back in place before Lily got out of the shower. But something changed in him at that moment. He didn't trust her anymore. In the following days, Mark stayed silent, but his mind was on high alert. He noticed Lily's schedules, the way she looked at her phone, the excuses that started to pop up. Then, on Friday night, it happened. Lily came out of the bedroom after a short call, looking tense. "I'm going out with Jessica," she said, grabbing her purse. Mark looked at her with a neutral expression. "At this hour?" She hesitated. "Yeah. Just a quick dinner." "Where?" "A new restaurant downtown." Mark stayed calm. "Fine. Have fun." Lily stood there for a second, like she expected him to say something else. But he just smiled. As soon as she left, Mark grabbed his car keys and followed her. He kept his distance, driving carefully so she wouldn't notice. His heart was pounding, and he wondered if he was truly ready to see what he was about to discover. Lily parked near a fancy restaurant. Mark watched from afar as Jessica arrived soon after. But what made him grip the steering wheel even tighter was that they weren't alone. Two men he didn't recognize were there as well. They greeted Jessica and Lily with friendly hugs. Jessica seemed completely at ease, laughing and talking confidently. Lily looked nervous. Unsure. Mark watched them enter the restaurant together. It was obvious what was going on. Lily was about to cross a line she could never undo. And Mark wouldn't just let it happen. Mark stayed in the car, parked a short distance from the restaurant, hands gripping the wheel until his knuckles went white. His breathing was heavy, his chest rising and falling like he was about to get into a fight. Maybe he was. Inside, Lily was sitting with Jessica and the two men. He could see them through the restaurant's large window. The place looked elegant, warm lights giving it an intimate vibe. Waiters moved between tables carrying wine and fancy dishes. None of that mattered to Mark. His eyes were locked on Lily. At first, she looked uncomfortable. She fiddled with her napkin, touched her hair, glanced at Jessica like she needed reassurance that everything was normal. Jessica, on the other hand, was completely relaxed, leaning toward the man beside her, smiling, tracing a finger around the edge of her wineglass. Then Mark saw the shift happen. Slowly, Lily began to ease up. She took a sip of wine. She gave the man across from her a timid smile. She let out a short laugh at something he said. He leaned in closer, and she didn't pull away. Mark felt something inside him burn. There it was. The exact moment Lily was about to cross that line. The moment when she'd go from being a married woman to something else entirely, something he never thought she could be. Mark opened the car door and stepped out. Every step toward the restaurant made his heart pound harder. He wasn't thinking about anything except what he was about to do. It didn't matter who was there. It didn't matter if it caused a scene. He had to stop it. Right there. Right then. When he entered, he felt a few customers glance his way, but he ignored it all. He walked right up to their table. She didn't see him coming. Right then, she was smiling at the man Jessica had set her up with. He was holding her hand across the table, and she wasn't pulling back. Mark felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Rage boiled up inside him. Without hesitation, he took out his phone, turned on the camera, and snapped a photo. The sound of the shutter made Lily look up, and when she saw who it was, all the color drained from her face. Jessica turned too, her eyes going wide in shock. Mark held his phone up and spoke in a voice colder than Lily had ever heard. "Don't bother coming home." The table fell into a stunned silence. The man with Lily looked back and forth, confused. Jessica clapped a hand over her mouth. Lily tried to say something, but no words came out. Mark turned to Jessica, fixing his gaze on her. "And you," he said, raising his phone. I'm sending this picture to your husband." Jessica's eyes went huge, pure panic setting in. "No." She tried to get up, but Mark was already tapping on his phone. Lily reached for his arm, tears filling her eyes. "Mark, please." He yanked his arm away. "No more, please, Lily. We're done." Jessica turned to Lily, furious. "This is your fault," she shouted. Lily shook her head, tears in her eyes. "No. But Jessica grabbed her bag and almost ran out of the restaurant. Lily stayed there, shaking from head to toe, with no idea what to do. Mark put his phone away and gave her one last look. "Goodbye, Lily." She sat there at the table, unable to move, the restaurant sounds muffled like everything had gone into slow motion. A waiter passed by, discreetly asking if she needed anything, but she didn't even hear him. Her eyes were fixed on the door Mark had just walked through. "Goodbye, Lily." His words echoed in her head. Cold. Final. He didn't shout or make a huge scene. He just looked at her, filled with the disappointment of someone who realizes he never really knew the person he loved. And now he was gone. Jessica, too. And Lily was alone. She didn't know how long she sat there like that, hands resting on the table, feeling her heart weighed down like she was carrying something too heavy to bear. When she finally moved, she picked up her purse with trembling hands and left the restaurant. The city felt different that night. The lights, the cars, the people walking by, everything was the same, but nothing inside her was. She got into her car but didn't start it. Instead, she just stared at her own reflection in the window. What had she done? It all started with an innocent conversation with Jessica. Just an idea. A bit of provocation. Something that at first seemed absurd but that gradually settled into her mind like a crack spreading until it destroys an entire wall. She thought she was just exploring new possibilities. But in reality, she was destroying everything she had. And now, there was no going back. The next morning, Jessica didn't show up at work. Nor did she come the next day, or the next week. The messages Lily sent went unanswered. She heard through the grapevine that Jessica asked for time off, and later a mutual coworker told her Jessica's husband immediately filed for divorce. What about Mark? He left the house that same night. He only came back to pick up some clothes, silently, barely looking at Lily. Her lawyer contacted her a few days later. The divorce would be quick, uncontested. Mark didn't want anything from her. The harsh truth hit Lily like a punch to the gut. She lost everything. She lost her husband. She lost her best friend. She lost the home they built together, the mornings when Mark made her coffee, the nights they cuddled on the couch to watch movies. And why? Over an idea? Over some illusion of freedom she never really wanted? Now, sitting in the empty living room of her apartment, surrounded by boxes and a deafening silence, Lily realized something. A traditional marriage wasn't a prison. Marriage wasn't about the freedom to be with other people. It was about the freedom to choose someone, day after day, and know that person chooses you too. But Lily wasn't chosen. And she never would be again. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.